And welcome back to the Unreality Show, where we talk about all the major dysfunction happening in reality shows today. And we really talk about some of the dysfunctional behaviors that happen with the reality stars and what happens in the shows, so that we can learn from them. We can actually have it be an educational experience, so we can see them mirroring some of our dysfunction. And how do we better ourselves through watching people get unraveled and get angry and get upset and get tagged and get annoyed and being reactive? How can we learn from that? And that's what we're really here talking about. I got Jerry Cerati Goldman in studio with me and Ellen Tunick. And today we're breaking down the Real Housewives of New York City, episode 10. It's called Blackout or Get Out. What was the next topic? What was the next piece of meat you want to jump on?
Do you want to talk about Sonia and Tinsley?
Tinsley? Sure, let's do it.
Here, Sonia invited this lady to come into her house and then has these rules and regulations, and my intern can't answer the door to pick up your box. I'm talking about craziness, and none of this was discussed prior. There was no boundaries and no getting grounded before she moved in to say, hey, these are the rules and regulations. Sonia's making them up along the way, and it's shocking. I'd have a real hard time with even staying in the house doing that. So there's a good example for me of, hey, we should have set up everything and had all the boundaries, all the regulations set up ahead of time, because this is going to affect a relationship.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that all relationships, whether they're intimate or whether they're a business relationship, or anytime you're going to enter into an agreement to partner with something or live together or whatever it is, we should always sit down and have a good, meaningful conversation about what are the expectations, what's the best way to work with you, how do you work best, what are some of the things that annoy you. You know, you want to get to know each other a little bit before you engage into maybe a business relationship or a partnership. You should really get to know the ins and outs. A lot of times people don't do that. We just get really excited about something and we jump in. And we do it in relationships too. You think you fall in love, but you're really just attracted to somebody, and you just jump. Before you know it, you're moving in, and you're going so fast that you don't realize you're shooting yourself in the foot, and you're sabotaging it because you didn't take your time. You didn't have a little bit of patience, and you didn't set yourself up to win by having conversations and opening up dialogues. Because if you spent that time a little bit in the front end, you'll see the red flags. Red flags will start to pop up. You know, at least a probation period. Don't we do that in business? When you hire an employee or you bring someone in, you go, okay, there's a probation period because I want to see if there's any red flags before I actually commit to hiring you. We don't even do that in our relationships. We just jump in head over heels over someone.
I can remember telling new employees, what we're doing here is we're putting on some shoes and we're going to walk it, and we're going to see if those shoes fit.
Yeah.
And let's be okay if they don't.
But could you have imagined if Ramona and Tinsley sat down and had all the rules ahead of time instead of making them up as they go? You know, Tinsley, you can't use my intern to open up and get a box at the front door. And hopefully Tinsley would have said, oh gosh, this is some craziness, maybe had second thoughts.
An opportunity to say, don't think this is for me.
Yeah. And I like what you said. You know, we'll revisit at another time and we'll decide whether it's a match or not. If you notice, when I coach someone for the very first time, or if I sit with you for the first time, you come to me because you want some coaching or insight. A lot of times I'm really there to pre-qualify you to see if we're going to be a match, because I know that not everyone can work with me. I know that not everyone can hear me. They can't hear the words that I'm saying, or I speak at a certain level that you can't grasp, or we just don't see eye to eye, or your ideology or your the way that you see life is so rigid in a certain way that there's no flexibility. So I try to pre-qualify people to, and I'm listening to my gut and my intuition and my spirit and taking all that into consideration to go, all right, this feels right. Let's engage now in an agreement where we can work together. It doesn't always work out. And it's okay, because we all don't match up with people, and that's all right to have that.
And that is not a failure.
Of course not.
But that's how people see it.
It could be.
They tag that with, I failed, we failed.
And if we could go back to Ramona, the other thing is Ramona.
You mean Sonia?
No, I want to go back to Ramona.
Back to Ramona.
Who's the gal that they went up to for the Christmas celebration?
Dorinda.
Dorinda. How did she peel paint off of a wall?
That was actually one of the more poignant moments I've seen on a reality show. Was Dorinda
In
when she went into that room?
Okay, and just was in disbelief of, oh my gosh, where did the paint go?
She was hurt.
Yeah,
This was her home.
But then Ramona blew it off. There's to me
Deflection.
dysfunction. So between that episode and the one with who's the first guy we talked about,
Bethenny?
Ramona's a true narcissist.
I can see that. I can see some narcissism.
Yeah,
in it.
and so
Since, I actually started watching this show when it first started. And honestly, Ramona has been very consistent
And
in
crazy.
her dysfunction
Yeah.
for years. And it's kind of sad that she has chosen this path. I mean, she's lost her marriage. She's obviously sad and miserable, but continues to choose not to look at it, not to do anything about it. What do you do with people? I probably answer this myself, but I'll ask you, what do you do with people who you love and you care for, but will not, for whatever reason, open themselves up to, going to a different level?
You don't do anything. It's their journey, and you can't control it. You can't
fix
You
it.
can't fix them. You can't make them. You just have to decide, if your love is strong enough to keep you in there to be able to tolerate. You have to learn how to tolerate, and you have to learn how to not let their dysfunction spill all over you and be projected onto you and tag you and have you get upset. You just got to learn how to love them for who they are in the way that they are, and not try to fix them. And so I think that's really the takeaway is when you're in love with somebody, or we have some family members, we have brothers and sisters, and we have kids that have these dysfunctions. You got to learn how to love them anyways, and learn how to kind of master yourself so that they can't get your goat. So
Right.
they can't get in there and disturb your own inner peace. They can't take your power without you giving it up. And that's what mastering a beautiful life is learning how to let people have their own journey and not let it disrupt your journey.
Is that challenging for you? It's very challenging for me.
Over the years, I've gotten better at it. So, and Alex has come up with a scenario for me with some people in my life that are not that normal and may have bipolar, and I put them in a box on a shelf, and know that if I treat them normally, I'm going to get disappointed and tagged, so I don't treat them normally.
It's a compassion box. You put them in a box that you have compassion for, that they still have more growth on their journey, and you don't take things personal. And it's just where they're at, and it's not right or wrong. It's just where they're at, and you get to let them have that experience of growth or not. They could stay like that, and be right and be stuck in that box forever. And you just got to decide whether they're healthy enough to your level to be able to interact with them in a healthy way. If not, then you got to move on.
So it's really a personal choice when you have people in your life that challenge you.
Everything's a personal choice. You're choosing in that moment. You're making a choice to not accept them for who they are, and making a choice to want to try to fix them or have them show up in a certain way that pleases you. A lot of times I say this, and it's funny. I kind of giggle every time I say it, but I'm gonna say it anyways. It's like, what audacity we have, how arrogant of us to think that certain people in our lives, that they need to show up in a certain way to make us feel better about ourselves, and that we can't give them permission to be dysfunctional.
I'll giggle for you.
Yeah, we don't allow people the space to be dysfunctional and say, hey, I acknowledge that it's your journey. I honor where you're at, and it's okay to be like that around me. And I'm not going to take it personal. It's just it's your stuff.
I think one of the greatest gifts you've given me is to go into situations and not have expectations. When I leave the expectation at the door, so whether it's a holiday dinner or whatever it may be, that, oh my gosh, this is going to be the perfect Christmas, and have it set in my mind that it's going to look a certain way. Each and every time I did it that way, I would get upset, disappointed. We go back to one of our first shows, we talked about Khloe Kardashian. She had a vacation where she had it in her mind looking a certain way, and it did not, so she got upset. And I think going into situations with it just is what it is, no expectation, has been a huge, huge help for me over the years.
I agree. I mean, it was like a revelation for me to even understand the difference between intention and expectation. I think that in life, we end up with expectations without even realizing how damaging they are to our personal well-being. So I'm, taking it back to these ladies, they all have very high expectations of what it should look like, what it, how it should be said, how it should be viewed. Those are all expectations. So no wonder that they're at each other's throats. There's nobody that comes to this circle with just an intention to be kind and authentic.
That's right.
And compassionate.
That's right. Let's look at Bethenny when she told Ramona, "You're not a good friend."
And that's when...
Is that is that an expectation? She obviously has an expectation for her friends to be a certain way.
Right.
And she labeled it good.
Ramona did not meet that.
For her, for Bethenny, she didn't meet that expectation. And then she had the audacity to verbalize it to her and say, "You're not a good friend," which you tell that to a dysfunctional person that's lost, broken, and hurt, that has her own defense mechanism. That's going to be a trigger for her to go on the crazy wagon, to go, "Are you kidding me? Are you?" And say it over and over and dramatize the heck out of it so that you're at home going, "Give me some more."
Yeah.
Keep saying that. Go to the next level, Ramona.
And
go
I
off
was
the
just
hinges.
the opposite. I was kind of like you, where stop it, please stop it, because it made me uncomfortable.
Ramona makes me uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and we talked about that. And, you highlighted the fact that instead of, maybe looking at this in a different way, looking at her with a tremendous amount of compassion for
Why
her
does
pain.
Why does that make you uncomfortable to watch that? Could it be a possibility that when you see her go to that level, that there's a part of you that you either have gone there before that you don't like about yourself? Have you ever gotten to the place where you got tagged so bad that you went off the hinges like that and just threw things way out of proportion? A lot of times when you see things that make you uncomfortable, remember earlier in the show I talked about some of their dysfunction, it mirrors us. And we go, wow, I've been there before. And we're not really like consciously looking at it, but subconsciously you can identify like, ooh, I've been, like, have you ever seen something or someone say something and you cringe?
I've definitely used those words in the past. I don't think I've gone off the rails quite like Ramona has, but I am sure that I have said, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" I know I've said that.
Okay, so could it be that she was mirroring a part of you that that's not your highest self, so it made you feel a little uncomfortable, like, ooh, either I've been there before or
And
maybe
this is going down a bad road.
Yeah, or maybe you've been on the other side, or you had somebody go off on you like that. You can probably see yourself in one or the other shoes.
I've had both.
Yeah. And so would that be your past, your present, or your future that you would be experiencing that from?
Definitely my past.
Yeah, we bring our past into every experience. So when you're watching a brand new moment and you go, ugh, like that, or you cringe, or you have a feeling of being uncomfortable, that's coming from your past experience. We measure everything to our past, which means that none of us are really here in the present moment creating new moments. We're always kind of reflecting back onto past moments before. And you're going back to, ooh, I've either been there in her shoes or I've been there in her shoes before.
But we can be in the moment if we choose to.
Well, yeah. But what would it look like if you were in the moment watching that? Because I was practicing being in the moment, watching it just as a neutral observer. I wasn't choosing to bring any of my emotions into it. I was just watching it, like observing it from a learning perspective. I think you guys you were like watching it from bringing all your past and history into it, which caused the uncomfortableness and all that kind of stuff.
I think as a parent, I was watching it going, "Oh, this lady's about ready to make a total nincompoop out of herself. What about her poor daughter who already has issues with her already?" And it was like, they're really not going to take this any farther. And then it just kept ramping up. And it was like, holy moly.
So you took it from a parental standpoint.
Yeah.
I never even thought about that.
Well, okay, so then you were bringing it from, maybe there's a possibility that you've either done something that you might have felt like you embarrassed your son.
I've gone off the rails, not like that.
Okay, but you took it to your past somewhere of feeling bad for her daughter, which has to kind of go along with that whole process.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
So you were bringing all that into that moment, and
Yeah.
you were measuring that up instead of just watching it from a neutral place.
Right. It
in
was
that
not
moment.
neutral. It was, this can't go on. This can't go on.
I embarrass my kids every day. That's my job.
So do I. I don't do it on purpose or with an intention. I think
Now I get to embarrass my
Yeah, I
kids.
think if I embarrass anybody, it's because I give myself permission to trust myself and just interact in a way that I trust my heart and my spirit, and I just give myself permission to be creative in the moment. So sometimes we say some certain things or give a certain look, or we do stuff that turns people off or offends them, and you end up you got to pay the consequence for living in life and just either being you or making the choices you make.
So the word authenticity and Housewives of New York City is a complete oxymoron?
It depends what authenticity means to you. To me, authenticity is a real deep word. To me, authenticity means you've discovered your spirit, you've discovered your higher self, you discovered your light, your purpose, and you know who you are deep down inside, and you just be that. I don't see anybody on that show operating from that place of authenticity. I see a lot of major dysfunction and a lot of egos. And so to me, I don't see authenticity. But to someone else, they see authenticity. I've heard people call our current president, he was so authentic in that speech. And to me, I was like, okay, I guess we have a different understanding of what authenticity means. Some people think that you just speaking your voice and saying what you want to say.
Authentic?
Yeah. So there's different levels to authenticity. To me, I've experienced deep levels of authenticity, so they might not match up with other people. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. I'm just saying this from my experience. Authentic it's spirit driven. It's love. It's coming from a place of love.
Because you and I talked about Bethenny, and I always thought that she was somewhat authentic.
I would use the word honest.
And that,
because a lot of times
and
people,
that's so important.
Some people
to
call
identify
authenticity. They mean no. I mean she was honest with how she felt. Because you can be honest and still not be authentic. So
Okay.
so I think she was honest with being honest with what she was feeling, and she was giving herself permission to communicate from that.
And I
honest
think
place.
I'm putting the Dr. Phil hat on because I think that Ramona triggers some mom issues with her of narcissism, possibly. I know her mom had a lot of issues and bulimic and anorexic, so I believe, I'm making up the story, that there's a trigger when it comes to Ramona, and that's probably how Bethenny dealt with a mom growing up that was so dysfunctional, is just sit back and I'm going to watch crazy, but she's turned it into an art of triggering people too.
And that could be part of the show. It could be part of, finding out how to work with your teammates and press their button. They like to play off each other. Like let's say we were on a reality show and I knew all your dysfunctions, I would sit here and I would just poke and I get you spinning and rattling, and
I don't think that'd be too hard.
It's a game. It's a game of unconsciousness to create enough drama for the show.
The one person we haven't talked about in anything is LuAnn. And somehow she always kind of, or at least in these episodes, has been flying underneath the radar.
Is that on purpose, you think? Or
Absolutely. With a boyfriend or a husband or whatever that's possibly fooling around all the time, she's purposely flying under the radar.
Yeah.
And doing it act not to bring any attention. And, if you had girlfriends that sat down with you at the level that she does and saying there's an issue here, and she's blowing it off.
They're married.
Right.
Yeah. I've never connected with LuAnn. She's always just been one of those people on the show.
Because she's not authentic.
I'll tell you what, when we come back from the break, we're going to spend the last 4 or 5 minutes talking about LuAnn on the Real Housewives of New York City. Stay tuned for more of the Unreality Show right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Can't wait.
And welcome back to the Unreality Show, where we talk about all the major dysfunctions and behaviors on reality TV. In reality shows today, we're hanging out in studio with Jerry Cerati Goldman. Raise your hand.
Woohoo!
Alan Tunick.
Woo!
And today we're talking about the Real Housewives of New York City, episode 10. We're talking about the blackout or get out. And we had a pretty cool conversation about Bethenny and Ramona and
Sonia.
Yeah,
And a little
LuAnn.
Tinsley.
But we haven't talked about LuAnn.
No, we haven't.
She's been hiding out.
She never gets too amped
So she
up.
doesn't get engaged. I've used to watch the show a few times in the past. I never really saw her get too crazy.
No.
I mean, I've seen her defend herself and get
Yes.
and get upset by defending herself. She's more on a defensive mode. She doesn't really attack a lot, but it's more
No.
defensive from what I.
There's a
from what I remember.
persona, a very solid, like concrete persona. That
Well, she's a
never
countess,
gets,
isn't she?
She
Not
wears
anymore.
the shield, so that's why it's a shield that she wears. It's an act that she has on, and she lives that act.
Well, and she has played the countess role for so long, but now that she's married, she has relinquished. She has been required to relinquish the countess.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Next.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, she's boring to me. She's just kind of boring.
Yeah, but
Well,
see, but that doesn't sell TV.
No.
The Ramonas and the Bethenny cat fights is what sells.
But her story sells it because her husband, who, I mean, how many times do people need to see him to see that he's cheated? And she just bypasses that.
He's actually, I have to say this in a politically correct manner, but he has had relations with all the women on the show.
I think he wanted to be on the show.
Is that a fact? Or
That's a fact Jerry's making up. I think he wanted to be on the show.
no, I'm talking about
No,
I'm
he
talking
has
about
had relations
With
everyone
Sonia
except Bethenny.
and Ramona,
Sonia, Ramona,
not Tinsley.
not Tinsley.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the deal about? Why is everybody giving her a hard time because she's marrying him?
Because he's fooled
Well, come
around on
on.
her. Why they were dating, why they were engaged.
While they were engaged, while they were planning
Okay,
their
but
wedding.
what could end this whole thing is for her to say, "I don't care."
and
right?
she did
And
exactly
she's
that.
that.
Boring.
Okay, but if she doesn't care, why don't people get off and go, "All right, cool. If she's okay with that, what's the big deal?"
Because they claim that they're doing it because they are protecting their friend.
But you can't protect someone that gives their husband permission to have
Be a
marital
slime
affairs.
bag.
Yeah. I mean, if right, think about it. If the wife goes, "I don't mind," then what are you? How are you gonna?
Well, but here's the thing. She didn't. I don't think she minded because he basically said, "Oh, that's in the past. I love you. We're getting married," and she bought that. Now, I can't imagine that now that they're married, that's going to be okay.
But even if it's not, it's nobody's. It's her journey. It's her life. There's no one else's business to go in there and go, "Hey, I'm really concerned about you, and I'm really,
I'm protecting you."
I'm protecting you." No, there's no one's job to protect her. It's her job to protect herself. Your job is to either point it out if you think she doesn't know, but if you pointed it out and she doesn't want to see it, you got to get off it at some point. Do you not?
And that's where, for a girlfriend, if we saw something that was not right, I would try and approach it different ways. But what you're saying is once you've approached it and it doesn't matter, then you just get off of it.
Well, if I had some information that I needed you to see because you can't see it, and I've tried a couple times and you just looked at me and went, You know,
Whatever.
Yeah, at a certain point, I'm gonna go, dude. I love you. If you can't see it, it's your own journey, and you know,
It is what it is.
If and when you finally see that and have a breakdown, I'll be there to pick you up and hug you and let you cry on my shoulder, and we'll just pick up. But I'm gonna get off it. I'm not gonna sit there and chase you because I got my own life to live. I'm not gonna be focused on.
People want to save people.
Do you think? Raise your hand if you might have that syndrome, right? You want to save people, you want to coddle them, you don't want, and at a certain point, after a couple attempts of saving them, they have to want to save themselves, and if they don't, you got to go try to either save someone else or.
How about saving yourself?
Exactly,
Yeah.
or save yourself. Yeah, but these are the dysfunctions that we got going on in reality TV show. So. What's the next show? I want to pitch the next show. What's the next show we want to watch? You want to stay on this show? Do you like this?
Yeah. Let's stay on.
I just
You wanna
can't
hang
wait
out-
till Orange County opens up.
You want to hang out in Crazy Land a little bit longer
Yeah,
in New York
one more
City?
time,
All right,
one more
all right,
time.
one more episode. So next Friday at 1 o'clock, we're going to break down the next episode. So we're talking about episode 11, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, episode 11 of The Real Housewives of New York City. I can't wait to jump back into that
But
one.
here's, one of the last things I'd like to say is that Jill and Bobby Zarin, who were the originals on the show, ended last week's show with this statement: "Here's to those that wish us well."
I love that. That's a great way to end the show.
That wasn't the whole thing.
We're here every Friday at 1 o'clock on the Unreality Show right here on your hometown station, KHTS.